Malik and Miles Jackson stood tall in Sterling County's courtroom, hearts racing as their FBI papers hit the judge's desk. Freedom seemed certain. Judge Clarence Hargrove's eyes flicked over the proof. Then he laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "Life in prison for conspiracy," he declared. Gavel-crashing gasps filled the air. The twins' assumed victory shattered, exposing a racist system's grip. This moment would change their future, sparking a battle they never imagined. What's Hargrove hiding to bury them so deep? Before we dive into this story, please share where you're watching from. If you stand for justice, hit like and subscribe because tomorrow's episode will keep you on the edge of your seat. Malik Jackson's heart pounded as the sheriff's van screeched to a halt outside Sterling County Jail, its rusted gates looming like jaws in the Mississippi dusk. The air was thick, 90 degrees Fahrenheit, sweat soaking his orange jumpsuit before he even stepped out. Miles, his twin, sat beside him, their wrists cuffed tight, chains biting into skin. The courtroom sting still burned, Judge Clarence Hargrove's laugh echoing in Malik's mind. That gavel had slammed their lives shut, but Malik's eyes scanned every detail, FBI instincts sharp despite the chaos. The van door slid open and a guard's voice barked, spitting venom. "You two think you're slick, huh? Playing FBI heroes in our county." Malik clenched his jaw, catching Miles' glance, a silent vow to stay steady. The guard, a stocky man with a buzz cut and a badge-reading cutler, shoved them forward, his grip bruising Malik's arm. "Move it, boys, or you'll regret stepping. Foot here." The racial edge in his tone was unmistakable, slicing deeper than the cuffs. Malik's pulse quickened, but he kept his face stone, knowing one wrong move could bury them further. They stumbled onto gravel, the jail's concrete walls, glaring under floodlights. Cutler and another guard, a wiry guy named Holt with a scar across his cheek, herded them toward intake. The process was a deliberate humiliation, every step laced with contempt. "Strip," Cutler ordered, tossing them rough towels. Malik's skin prickled as he shed the jumpsuit, standing exposed under Holt's leer. "Ain't no badges here, just troublemakers," Holt sneered, his eyes raking over them like they were less than human. Miles stood rigid, his breath steady, but Malik saw the fire in his brother's gaze, the same resolve they'd honed since childhood. The search was invasive, gloved hands probing without cause, a power play to break them. Malik memorized their faces, their badges, storing every slight for the fight ahead. "They think we're nothing," he thought, "but we're still agents." That kept his spine straight, dressed in fresh jumpsuits, reeking of bleach. They were marched down a dim corridor, fluorescent bulbs flickering like a bad omen. The air smelled of sweat and despair, walls stained with years of neglect. Malik's eyes caught scratches on the concrete, faint carvings that looked deliberate, names, dates, and a recurring symbol, a crooked star inside a circle. His mind catalogued it, sensing a pattern, something tied to Hargrove's grip on this place. The guards halted at a cell, its bars rusted but solid. Inside, a hulking inmate lounged on the lower bunk, his bald head gleaming, tattoos sprawling across his arms. "Name's Vance," he grunted, not looking up, but his voice carried a threat. Cutler smirked, shoving Malik inside. "Play nice, or you won't last a night." Miles followed, and the door slammed shut, the clang echoing like a judge's gavel. Vance sized them up, cracking his knuckles. "Heard your feds," he said, his tone mocking. "That true, or you just dumb enough to lie?" Malik's gut tightened. The rumor had spread too fast, Hargrove's doing, no doubt. "We're just guys caught in a bad spot," Malik said, keeping his voice even, testing Vance's angle. Miles leaned against the wall, casual but alert, their old rhythm kicking in. One talking, one watching. Vance snorted, standing to tower over them, his breath sour. "Don't play cute. Nobody here trusts wannabe heroes, especially not your kind." The slur hung heavy, and Malik's fists clenched, but he held back. They needed to survive, not start a war on day one. Vance's eyes flicked to the bars where Holt lingered, watching like a vulture. Malik caught the exchange, a signal something was off. This guy's planted, he realized, a setup to provoke them. They settled on the top bunks, the thin mattresses creaking under their weight. Malik's mind raced, piecing together the cell's clues. Those carvings weren't random. He traced one with his finger when Vance wasn't looking, finding numbers beneath the star. A code maybe, dates or payoffs. Hargrove's reach felt suffocating, like the walls themselves were his eyes. Miles tapped his bunk twice, their signal, for stay sharp. Malik nodded slightly, grateful for the anchor of his brother's presence. They whispered when Vance dozed, planning to blend in, gather intel, anything to claw their way out. But sleep was impossible, the cell's heat stifling, the weight of Hargrove's sentence pressing harder than the concrete. Morning broke with a buzzer's screech, jolting them awake. Vance was already up, pacing like a caged wolf. Breakfast, he muttered, but his eyes said trouble. They filed into the mess hall, guards barking orders, their batons tapping for emphasis. Malik scanned the room, inmates segregated by unspoken rules, black faces on one side, others glaring from across. The tension was a live wire, and Cutler's stare burned into them, his lips curling when their eyes met. "You're marked," that look said. They grabbed trays, the food grey and tasteless, but Malik's focus was on survival, not hunger. Miles nudged him, nodding at a guard slipping Vance a small bag. "Payoff," Miles mouthed, and Malik's stomach knotted. Hargrove's machine was everywhere, oiling its gears with fear. Back in the cell, things unraveled fast. Holt stormed in, Cutler, trailing, both radiating smugness. "Inspection," Holt snapped, tearing through their bunks. Malik's pulse spiked as Cutler found a plastic bag under Miles's mattress, filled with white powder. "Well, well," Cutler drawled, holding it up like a trophy. "Guess you feds ain't so clean." Malik's voice was steel. "That's not ours." "You know it." Holt laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Tell it to the warden, boy." The racial jab landed hard, but Malik's anger was colder, sharper. They were being buried deeper, Hargrove's orders clear in every move. Miles stepped forward. "Calm but firm. Check the cameras, you'll see we didn't touch that." Cutler's grin widened. "Cameras? Funny thing, they're down today." The guards cuffed them, dragging them to the warden's office. Malik memorized the route, every turn, every face, knowing they'd need it later. The warden, a gaunt man named Perry, barely looked up from his desk, Hargrove's crooked star pinned to his tie. "Possession's a serious charge," he said, voice flat. "You're looking at more time." Malik's mind screamed setup, but he kept silent, catching Miles's eye. They'd fight this, but not here, not yet. Perry waved them out, and the guards marched them back, tossing them into the cell with Vance, who now smirked openly. "You're in deep now," he said, cracking his neck. Malik's skin crawled, sensing the trap tightening. Hours later, the cell block erupted. Shouts echoed, trays clattered, and boots pounded the halls. A riot, sudden and chaotic. Inmates shoving, guards yelling. Malik and Miles stayed back, pressed against the bars, avoiding the fray. Vance was in the thick of it, throwing punches, but his eyes kept darting to them, calculated. Cutler appeared, baton raised, and pointed straight at the twins. "You two started this," he bellowed, shoving through the crowd. Malik's heart sank. "We weren't even out there," he protested, but Cutler's grin was feral. "Tell that to the report." Guards swarmed, pinning them, cuffs snapping tight. Miles struggled, his voice rising. "You're framing us. This is Hargrove's game." Holt slammed, his baton into the bars, inches from Miles's face. "Shut it, or you're done." The riot's chaos masked the setup, inmates scattering as guards dragged the twins to solitary. Malik's mind raced, piecing it together. Hargrove had planned this, turning a planted bag into a full-blown riot charge. The cell block's screams faded as they were thrown into separate cells, doors slamming shut. Malik's cell was a concrete box, 6 feet by 8, the air stale, a single bulb buzzing overhead. He sank to the floor, the carvings from their old cell flashing in his mind, that crooked star mocking him. They'd thought they could lay low, survive the first night, but Hargrove's reach was a noose, tightening with every move. Miles' face haunted him, their last glance a promise to fight on. Solitary's darkness closed in, but Malik's resolve burned brighter, a vow to tear Hargrove's empire apart no matter the cost. Miles Jackson's world was 6 feet of concrete and silence, the solitary cell in Sterling County Jail, a tomb of flickering light and stale air. The temperature hovered at 85 degrees Fahrenheit, sweat pooling on his brow, his orange jumpsuit clinging like a second skin. The riot frame-up still stung. Cutler's smirk burned into his memory, a reminder of Judge Clarence Hargrove's chokehold on their lives. Malik was somewhere nearby, separated by walls but tethered by their bond. Miles pressed his ear to the cold concrete, straining for any sign of his twin, his FBI training the only thing keeping panic at bay. What kind of machine buries two agents? This deep? The question gnawed at him, Hargrove's crooked star from their old cell flashing in his mind, a symbol of corruption that seemed to pulse through these walls. The cell was barren, a steel cot bolted to the floor, a sink that dripped. Every 9 seconds, each plink a hammer to his nerves. No windows, just a buzzing bulb that never dimmed, designed to fray the mind. Miles paced 3 steps, turned, paced again, his chained ankles clinking softly. Then he heard it, a faint rasp through the vent, low and deliberate. "You punks think you're tough, huh? Gonna break you like the rest." The voice was Holt's, the scar-faced guard, his words dripping with racial venom, each syllable a jab at their identity. Miles' fists tightened, but he swallowed the rage. They'd heard worse growing up black in Mississippi, slurs tossed. Like stones, but this was different, a system weaponizing hate to crush them. How do you fight an enemy who owns the rules? He sank to the cot, eyes scanning for anything to anchor him. A crack in the wall caught his attention, barely visible under the bulb's glare. He traced it with a trembling finger, finding a folded scrap of paper wedged inside, its edges brittle. Unfolding it, his breath caught. "Hargrove's machine runs. Deep. Trust no one." Redstone's next. The handwriting was shaky, the ink faded, left by someone who'd been here before. Another victim, maybe. Redstone, he knew that name. A maximum security prison 90 miles north. A black hole for those Hargrove wanted gone. The note was a warning, proof they weren't alone in this fight, but it chilled him. What had that inmate seen to risk leaving? This? Miles tucked the paper into his waistband, his mind racing to decode its weight. He tapped the wall twice, slow and firm, their childhood signal. A faint tap answered, Malik's response, alive and fighting. Miles closed his eyes, picturing his brother's steady gaze, the way they'd always backed each other. They'd signaled through walls before during undercover ops, but never like this, trapped in a racist web with no exit. "We need a plan," he tapped, using their old code, short for gather intel, stay sharp. Malik's reply came, 3 taps, meaning he'd found something too. Miles's heart lifted, a flicker of hope, but the vent hissed again. "You're nobody here," Holt taunted, his voice closer now, boots scraping outside. "Keep pretending you're feds. See how long you last." The hatred was personal, Hargrove's orders carved into every word, and Miles knew they were being watched, tested, pushed to snap. Hours blurred, the bulb's hum a relentless drill in his skull. Miles scratched numbers on the cot's frame, tracking time, anything to stay grounded. Then a new sound, metal on metal, a tray sliding under the door. The food was a grey mush, but a folded napkin sat beside it, unmarked. He unfolded it carefully, finding a single line. "Confess and you walk. Resist and you're done." No signature, but the intent was clear. A deal from Hargrove's machine, dangling freedom for betrayal. Miles's stomach twisted. Confess to what? Conspiracy? Expose their mission? It was a trap, but the offer gnawed at him, the isolation amplifying doubt. Could they hold out forever in this void? He crushed the napkin, tossing it into the sink, his resolve hardening. They'd sworn an oath to each other, to the truth. No deal. He tapped the wall again, signaling no to Malik, knowing his brother faced the same pressure. Malik's tap came back, firm, agreeing. They'd fight, together, always. Miles leaned against the wall, whispering a prayer their mother taught them, words of strength against darkness. For a moment he felt steady, believing they'd outlast this hell. They'd resisted the bait, kept their cover, maybe bought time. But footsteps echoed heavy and fast, shattering the quiet. The door swung open, and Sheriff Vernon Tate filled the frame, his badge gleaming like a blade, his face a mask of triumph. Miles stood, instinct screaming, but Tate's voice was ice. "You boys are in deeper than you know," he said, tossing a file onto the cot. Miles' eyes flicked to the papers. Crime scene photos, a body he didn't recognize, blood pooling on asphalt. "Murder," Tate said, his grin feral. "Found your prints at the scene." Miles' heart stopped, the lie so brazen it stole his breath. "We've been locked up," he said, voice steady despite the dread. "You know that's impossible." Tate leaned closer, his breath sour. "Evidence says otherwise. Hargrove don't like loose ends, and you're unraveling fast." The photos were fake, had to be, but the weight of the frame-up crushed him. Malik's cell door clanged open down the hall, guards shouting, and Miles knew his brother faced the same lie. They'd thought resisting the confession was enough, a small win in this war. But Hargrove had planned deeper, turning their defiance into a death sentence. Tate snapped his fingers, and Holt appeared, cuffs in hand. "You're moving," he said, dragging Miles out. "Redstone Prison, courtesy of the judge." Miles's mind reeled. The note's warning now reality. Redstone was a fortress, a place where men vanished, Hargrove's personal vault for silencing threats. The guards shoved him into a corridor, Malik joining him, their eyes meeting for a split second, fear mirrored, but unspoken. The murder charge was a phantom, built on lies, yet it felt heavier than the cuffs. How do you fight a ghost? They'd believed they could endure solitary, outsmart the guards, but Hargrove's machine had teeth, and it was biting harder now. The van waited outside, its engine growling like a beast, ready to swallow them whole. As they were chained inside, Miles' hand brushed the hidden note, a reminder of the fight ahead. Redstone loomed, a new battlefield, but Hargrove's shadow stretched further, his power a tidal wave they couldn't outrun yet. They dodged one trap only to land in a bigger one, the murder frame-up, a noose tightening around their necks. Miles gripped the bench, his resolve a flicker in the dark. They were still agents, still brothers, and they'd tear this machine apart, piece by piece. But what waited in Redstone's walls, and could they survive it? "If you're raging at how Miles and Malik are being crushed by this racist system, comment number 1 to stand with their fight for truth. Like and subscribe to keep this story's fire burning. Can you believe Hargrove's machine framed them for murder, just for resisting? Drop a comment with your thoughts on their courage under fire, and hit that subscribe button to see what's next. What kind of hell awaits them in Redstone, and will they find a way to strike back? Malik Jackson's boots hit the cracked asphalt of Redstone Maximum Security Prison's courtyard, the Mississippi sun blazing at 92 degrees Fahrenheit, turning his orange jumpsuit into a furnace. The murder frame-up from Sterling County. Jail still gnawed at him, Sheriff Tate's grin a fresh wound, proof of Judge Clarence Hargrove's suffocating reach. Miles shuffled beside him, their wrists cuffed, chains rattling like a death knell. Redstone's walls towered 30 feet, high topped with glinting razor wire. A fortress designed to swallow men whole. Malik's FBI instincts kicked in, scanning the guard towers, noting sniper rifles silhouetted against the sky. How do you slip through a cage this tight? The question burned, but his focus stayed sharp, tethered to Miles's steady presence. The intake process was a gauntlet of degradation, every step dripping with racial contempt. Guards lined them up in a concrete hall, air thick with disinfectant and menace. "Strip," barked a burly guard, his badge reading Kessler, his eyes cold as steel. Malik shed his jumpsuit, skin prickling under the gaze of Kessler and his partner, a lean man named Doyle with a shaved head and a smirk that screamed trouble. "Look at these hot shots," Doyle sneered, circling them. "Think you're feds. You're just dirt here." The slur hit like a fist, but Malik kept his face blank, catching Miles' subtle nod, their silent pact to endure. The search was brutal, hands probing with deliberate cruelty, a ritual to strip dignity. Malik memorized their moves, Kessler's thick fingers, Doyle's quick glances to a camera that wasn't recording. Hargrove's shadow was here, in every taunt, every shove. They were handed threadbare uniforms, the fabric rough against raw skin, and marched to a holding area. Malik's eyes caught a glint on Kessler's hand, a silver ring with a crooked star etched into it, the same symbol from Sterling's cell walls. His pulse spiked, the connection undeniable. Hargroves. Network wasn't just rumor. It was carved into this prison's bones. What kind of power buys a place like this? The thought chilled him as they were herded into a yard. Inmates watching like wolves, guards perched above. A third guard, a squat man named Bragg, shoved them forward, his baton tapping his palm. "Time for your welcome," he said, voice low, and Malik braced, sensing the trap. The welcome came fast, a group of inmates circling them led by a giant named Reno, his knuckles scarred, eyes gleaming with purpose. "Hargrove's boys don't like snitches," Reno growled, cracking his neck, and Malik knew this was no random brawl. The guards stepped back, Kessler's smirk confirming it, a setup to break them on day one. Reno swung, his fist a blur, but Malik dodged, FBI training snapping into muscle memory. Miles moved in sync, deflecting a second attacker, their backs pressed together. The yard blurred, dust kicking up, inmates cheering. But Malik's mind was a razor, counting foes, 5 in all, spotting Reno's weak left side. They fought smart, landing precise hits, avoiding lethal blows, but the odds were brutal. A fist caught Malik's jaw, pain exploding, blood coppery on his tongue. Miles grunted, taking a knee, but they kept moving, refusing to fall. The brawl ended as fast as it started, Bragg's whistle piercing the air. "Enough!" he snapped, but his eyes glinted with satisfaction. Reno spat blood, glaring, a promise of more to come. Malik wiped his lip, catching his breath, Miles's hand steadying him. They'd held their own, earned a sliver of respect, but the cost was clear. Every eye now marked them. As they were led inside, a lanky inmate lingered nearby, his dreadlocks tied back, his gaze cautious but not hostile. "Name's Caleb," he muttered, voice barely audible. "Watch your backs." That wasn't random. Malik nodded, filing the name, sensing an ally, or at least someone not bought by Hargrove. Caleb's warning echoed the note from Solitary, a thread of truth in this snake pit. In their new cell, a 10x8 box with double bunks and a rusted toilet, Malik checked for bugs, his fingers tracing seams while Miles stood watch. Caleb's words hung heavy, and Malik shared the ring's detail, whispering low. "That star's Hargrove's brand," he said, and Miles's eyes darkened, piecing it together. "They're running a machine," Miles said, voice tight. "Prison's just the next gear." Malik nodded, spotting more carvings on the bunk frame, dates and initials, a ledger of lost lives. They sat, planning to dig deeper, use Caleb, find the machine's heart. For a moment, they felt a spark, a chance to turn the tide. They'd survived the yard, found a lead, maybe cracked Redstone's code, but the cell door creaked, shattering the illusion. Doyle stormed in, Kessler trailing, both radiating smugness. "Cell check," Doyle announced, ripping through their bunks with theatrical flair. Malik's gut twisted as Kessler pulled a small bag from under his mattress, pills glinting inside. "Contraband," Kessler said, holding it high, his grin a blade. "You boys don't learn, do you?" Malik's voice was ice. "That's planted. You're Hargrove's dogs, nothing more." Doyle laughed, sharp and cruel. "Keep talking, Fed, makes this sweeter." The racial undertone was raw, their blackness a crime in itself, no evidence needed. Miles stepped forward, calm but fierce. "You won't bury us this easy." Kessler's eyes narrowed, a flicker of unease, but his smirk returned. "Warden'll love this." They were dragged to the yard again, this time for punishment. Bragg stood before a jeering crowd, inmates forced to watch. "Contraband violation," he bellowed, tossing the bag at their feet. Public shaming, Redstone style. Malik's face burned, not from shame, but rage, the lie a public brand, painting them as scum. Reno's crew hooted, their taunts racial, vicious, Hargrove's script playing out. Malik locked eyes with Caleb, who shook his head slightly, a warning to stay cool. They endured, standing tall, believing the worst was over, that they'd take the hit and regroup. But Bragg's radio crackled, and his face hardened, a new order coming through. The guards spun them around, cuffs snapping tight. "You're not done," Doyle hissed, shoving them toward a side gate. Malik's heart sank as Reno and 2 others closed in, their grins feral, knives glinting in their hands. "Snitches don't last," Reno said, voice low, and Malik realized this was the real climax, a staged attack to silence them for good. Hargrove's orders, whispered through Kessler's ring, had marked them for death. "You're nobody," Reno taunted, the blade catching sunlight, and Malik braced, Miles at his side, knowing this fight was life or death. They'd thought surviving the brawl was enough, a foothold in Redstone's chaos, but Hargrove's machine had planned deeper, turning their defiance into a bounty on their heads. Miles Jackson's pulse thundered as he ducked behind a rusted water tank in Redstone Prison's yard, the Mississippi heat hitting 95 degrees Fahrenheit, his orange jumpsuit soaked through. The snitch bounty from yesterday's staged. Attack burned in his mind, Reno's knife still glinting in his memory, a mark of Judge Clarence Hargrove's relentless grip. Malik crouched beside him, eyes scanning the crowd of inmates, their chains clinking softly. Every shadow held a threat, every glance a blade. Miles' FBI training was their lifeline, turning the yard into a chessboard where one wrong move meant death. How do you outrun a bounty when the whole prison's bought? The question clawed at him, but Malik's steady breath kept him grounded, their bond a shield against despair. The yard was a concrete jungle, 50 yards wide, ringed by guard towers, snipers' scopes catching the sun. Inmates milled in clusters, deals whispered, eyes darting. Miles spotted Reno across the field, his crew flexing, waiting for a chance. 2 days ago they'd survived the welcome brawl, but the drug frame-up and snitch label had painted a target no fight could erase. Guard Kessler patrolled nearby, his crooked star ring flashing, a smug nod to Hargrove's orders. "You're done, boys," his look said, and Miles' jaw tightened, hating how the racial slur from intake still echoed, branding them less than human. They moved low, sticking to blind spots, using skills honed in undercover ops to blend, dodge, anticipate. Shout broke the tension, an inmate lunging at another, fists flying. Miles seized the distraction, nudging Malik toward a shaded corner where Caleb, their wary ally, loitered. Caleb's dreadlocks swayed as he leaned against a wall, his eyes sharp but guarded. "You're still breathing," he muttered, respect in his tone. "That's something." Miles kept his voice low, checking for listeners. "We need to know who's pulling strings here." Caleb glanced at Kessler, then back. "Hargrove's got this place wired. Kickbacks from private prisons, sentences for profit. Black folks like us, we're the fuel." Miles's stomach knotted, the truth raw, confirming the note from Solitary. Hargrove wasn't just a judge, he was a kingpin, turning lives into dollars. Caleb hesitated, then slipped them a name. "Mona. Kitchen. Cook. She's clean, hates Hargrove's crew. Might smuggle a message out." Miles memorized it, hope flickering. A way to reach their FBI handler could break this cage. Malik nodded, his mind already mapping the kitchen's layout from yesterday's chow line. They'd slip Mona a coded note. Details of Hargrove's machine, enough to spark an investigation. But the yard shifted, Reno's crew closing in, 6 men now, their steps deliberate. Miles's heart raced, but he kept cool, whispering to Malik, "Split and circle back." Their training kicked in, splitting paths to confuse the pack. Miles weaved through inmates, Malik vanishing behind a bench, their moves a dance of survival. The attack came fast, a wiry inmate lunging with a shiv, his eyes wild with bounty greed. Miles sidestepped, grabbing the man's wrist, twisting until the blade dropped, silent to avoid guards. Another swung a sock filled with stones, grazing Miles's shoulder, pain flaring. He countered with a knee, dropping the attacker, his breath, ragged but controlled. Malik reappeared, tackling a third, their teamwork seamless, honed over years. The crowd parted, no one joining the fray, fear of Hargrove's wrath stronger than the bounty's pull. Reno watched, arms crossed, a predator, biding time. Miles locked eyes with him, defiance burning. "We are not your prey," he thought, but the yard's silence screamed otherwise. They regrouped by the fence, bruises throbbing, blood trickling from Miles's lip. Caleb drifted over, tossing them a rag. "You move like soldiers," he said, voice low. "Keep it up, you might last." He confirmed Mona's shift, midnight in the kitchen. Miles felt a surge, a plan forming. They'd draft the note tonight, smuggle it during cleanup, a lifeline to the outside. For a moment, They believed they'd cracked Redstone's rhythm, turned the bounty into noise they could outlast. They'd fought off the attack, secured Caleb's trust, found Mona. Progress, fragile but real. But the prison's siren wailed, lights flashing red, locking the yard down. Guards stormed in, batons raised, Doyle leading the pack, his shaved head gleaming with sweat. "Lock down!" he bellowed, eyes locking on the twins. "You two, with me!" Miles's gut twisted, sensing the setup. They were cuffed, dragged to a side room, the air thick with bleach and dread. Inside, a guard lay on a stretcher, bloodied, moaning a stage scene. "You did this," Doyle snapped, pointing at the guard. "Assault on an officer, bad move for feds." Miles' voice was steel. "We were in the E. Yard, you saw us." Kessler smirked, tossing a bloodied rag at their feet. "Found this in your cell matches his wounds." The lie was brazen, another racial trap, their blackness enough to convict them in Hargrove's court. Miles's mind screamed injustice, the frame-up a mirror of Sterling's riot, but sharper, deadlier. Malik stepped forward, calm but fierce. "You're playing Hargrove's game and it's weak." Doyle's baton twitched, inches from Malik's face, but he backed off, a flicker of fear in his eyes. They were hauled to the warden's office, Perry's gaunt face unchanged, his crooked star-tie pin a taunt. "Assault's a capital charge," he said, voice flat. "You're lucky it's just lockdown for now." Miles knew lucky was a lie, Hargrove's, machine grinding them down, each frame up a step toward oblivion. They were shoved back to their cell, the door slamming, hope fading like the siren's echo. That night, under the cell's dim bulb, they whispered plans. Mona still their best shot. Miles scratched a coded note on a scrap. Details of Kessler's ring, Caleb's intel, Hargrove's kickbacks. They'd get it to her, no matter the lockdown. They felt a spark, believing they'd outsmarted the frame-up, kept their edge. But boots echoed, the door flying open. Not a guard, but a man in a suit. Hargrove's lawyer, Vance Pollard, his eyes cold as marble. "You've caused enough trouble," he said, tossing a photo of their mother's house, curtains drawn, a sheriff's, car parked outside. Miles' heart stopped, the threat clear. "Sign this," Pollard said, sliding a confession across the bunk. "Admitting your frauds, no FBI, just cons. Charges drop, you go free. Refuse, and your mama pays." His voice was silk, but the racial edge cut deep, their family a pawn in Hargrove's game. Miles's hand shook, the photo burning his eyes. Malik's face was stone, but his breath hitched, the weight crushing them both. They'd fought off knives, dodged frame-ups, found a lifeline in Mona, thought they were steps ahead. But Hargrove's machine struck harder, turning their love into a weapon. What do you choose when family's on the line? If you're stunned by Hargrove's vile move to threaten Miles and Malik's mother, comment number 1 to stand against this injustice. Like and subscribe to fuel their fight. Can you imagine the gut punch of seeing your family targeted just for doing what's right? Drop a comment with your reaction to their impossible choice and hit subscribe to stay locked in. How will they protect their mum when Hargrove's claws are this deep, and what's next in Redstone's deadly game? Malik Jackson's hands shook as he stared at the photo of their mother's house. The sheriff's car parked outside like a vulture. Hargrove's lawyer Pollard's threat echoing in the dim Redstone prison cell. The Mississippi night was stifling. 88 degrees Fahrenheit, the air heavy with bleach and despair. Miles sat across from him, his eyes fixed on the confession paper Pollard had left. Its words a poison. "Admit your frauds, no FBI, or your mama pays." The bounty from the yard, the guard's assault frame-up, all paled against this, Hargrove's machine striking at their heart. Malik's FBI training screamed to stay calm, but his chest tightened, their mother's smile flashing in his mind. How do you fight when your family's the target? The cell's bulb flickered, casting shadows on the concrete, 10 feet by 8, their world shrinking with every blow. Miles crumpled the photo, his voice low but fierce. "We can't sign, Malik. It's a trap. They'll kill us anyway." Malik nodded, knowing his twin was right, but the weight of their mother's safety crushed him. She'd raised them alone, her diner job barely covering rent, Yet she'd taught them to stand tall, black and proud, against a world that tried to break them. Signing meant betraying her strength, exposing their mission, ending any chance to dismantle Hargrove's empire. But refusing meant gambling her life. Malik's fingers traced the bunk's carvings, dates of other victims, a reminder they weren't the first Hargrove had tried to bury. A faint tap came through the wall, not their code, but urgent. Malik knelt by the vent, catching a whisper. Mona, the kitchen cook, risking everything. "Got your note," she hissed, voice trembling. Handler's signal came back, coded. "Hold on, help's coming." Malik's heart leapt, their smuggled message from yesterday reaching their FBI contact. Diane Voss, a lifeline in this hell. He relayed it to Miles, whose eyes lit with hope, a rare crack in his guarded mask. They decoded the signal on a scrap. Diane's shorthand clear. Stay alive, gather proof, extraction planned. Malik felt a surge, a chance to save their mother and expose Hargrove. They'd resisted Pollard's deal, kept their cover, maybe turned the tide. They hatched a plan, whispering under the bulb's hum. Redstone held secrets, Caleb had said. Inmates with stories of Hargrove's kickbacks. They'd rally them, collect testimonies, a hidden archive to bolster Diane's case. Malik took first watch, Miles scratching names on the bunk, men they'd approached during yard time. They moved with purpose, believing they'd outmaneuvered Pollard's threat, their mother. Safe if Diane acted fast. Malik pictured her now, her apron stained from the diner, her laugh defying the world's cruelty. "We'll get you out, Mama," he vowed, the words a shield against doubt. For a moment, they felt like agents again, not prisoners, their plan a spark, in Redstone's darkness. But the cell door rattled, a guard's key turning, not Mona's soft knock. Malik tensed as Caleb slipped in, his dreadlocks tucked under a cap, eyes wide with panic. "Riot's brewing," he whispered. "Guards setting it up. You're the targets." Malik's blood ran cold, Hargrove's machine moving faster than their plan. Miles grabbed Caleb's arm. "Who's calling it?" Caleb shook his head. "Kessler, Doyle, all Hargrove's dogs. They want you dead, say you're stirring trouble." The racial lie was clear, their blackness a spark for chaos, no proof needed. Malik's mind raced, the bounty now a death sentence, their mother's photo, a taunt they couldn't dodge. The siren screamed, red lights flashing, inmates shouting as the riot erupted. Malik and Miles pressed against the bars, Caleb vanishing into the chaos. Guards stormed the block, batons swinging, but Kessler's crew zeroed in, their crooked star rings glinting like beacons. "You started this," Kessler roared, shoving through, his baton aimed at Malik's chest. "We were locked in," Malik snapped, but the lie was set, Hargrove's script playing out. Inmates clashed, tables overturning, but Malik saw the pattern, Reno's crew herding the fight toward them, a staged execution masked as riot. Miles yanked him back, dodging a thrown chair, their training a lifeline in the storm. They fought to survive, weaving through the melee, fists and elbows keeping attackers at bay. Malik's shoulder burned from a glancing blow, Miles's breath ragged but steady. They reached a corner, backs to the wall, believing they'd hold. Out, get to Mona, save their plan. But the guards closed in, tear gas hissing, choking the air. Malik coughed, eyes streaming, as Doyle's baton cracked against his arm, pain exploding. "You're done, Fed," Doyle sneered. The racial slur a whip, their fight reduced to nothing. They were cuffed, dragged through smoke, the riot's roar fading as they were thrown into a blacked-out room, no windows, just concrete and chains. Thiga. Interrogation began without warning. Kessler and Bragg at the helm, their faces masks of glee. "Who's your handler?" Kessler demanded, slamming a fist on a steel table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Malik spat blood, silent, his mind on their mother, Diane's signal, anything but breaking. Miles sat chained beside him, face bruised but defiant. "We're—" "Nobody," Miles said, voice calm, a dare. Bragg laughed, cold and sharp, then nodded to a guard Malik hadn't seen, a hulking figure with no badge. The man stepped forward, cracking his knuckles, and Malik braced, knowing this wasn't questioning, it was torture. The first blow landed on his ribs, air rushing out, pain a white-hot flare. Miles shouted, struggling against his chains, but the guard hit again, targeting Malik's knees, his back, each strike laced with racial taunts. "You think you're smart, huh? Gonna save the world?" The words blurred with the pain, Hargrove's hatred in every punch. Miles took his turn, grunting as fists found his jaw, his chest, their blackness a crime they couldn't escape. Malik's vision swam, but he clung to Diane's signal, Mona's whisper refusing to crack. They'd resisted Pollard, rallied inmates, thought they'd built a shield. But Hargrove's machine didn't bend. It broke. Hours later, half-conscious, they were dragged to a new cell, blood drying on their lips. Malik's body screamed, but his eyes caught a guard's radio crackle, Tate's voice cutting through. "Your mama's in cuffs," he said, a chuckle in his tone. "Caught her hiding evidence, aiding fugitives. Courts tomorrow, Hargrove's presiding." Malik's heart shattered, the photo now reality, their mother arrested, her life torn apart for their fight. Miles's face crumpled, a rare break, his voice a whisper. "We didn't sign and they still got her." Malik gripped his brother's shoulder, pain secondary to rage. They'd planned to save her, believed Diane's help was near. But Hargrove's claws were deeper, turning their defiance into her chains. The cell door slammed, locking them in with despair, their mother's fate a noose they couldn't cut. Miles Jackson's heart shattered in Redstone Prison's cell, the concrete walls closing in like a vice. The Mississippi heat at 90 degrees Fahrenheit, turning his bloodied jumpsuit to glue. Sheriff Tate's radio message burned in his ears. Their mother, Lena, arrested for aiding fugitives. Her trial set for tomorrow under Judge Clarence Hargrove's gavel. The torture from hours ago, Kessler's fists, the riot frame-up, all paled against this. Hargrove's machine sinking claws into their family. Miles's FBI training screamed for strategy, but his mind spun with Lena's face, her diner apron, her voice singing hymns through hard times. How do you save someone when the system's built to destroy her? Malik sat beside him, bruises dark on his jaw, eyes hollow but fierce, their bond the only light in this abyss. The cell was a coffin, 8 feet by 10, a single bulb buzzing like a wasp, its glow harsh on the bunk's carved names, ghosts of Hargrove's victims. Miles' ribs ached, each breath a knife, but the real pain was Lena, her life now a pawn because they'd refused Pollard's deal. She'd taught them to fight, black and unbroken, against a world that saw them as threats. Now that world had her in chains, her diner closed, her name smeared, all for their mission. Miles gripped the bunk, guilt and rage warring inside. Malik's voice broke the silence, low but steady. "We'll get her out, Miles. We have to." Miles nodded, knowing his twin felt the same weight. Their mother's love a fire they couldn't let die. They whispered plans, voices barely audible over the prison's distant clangs. Diane's signal through Mona gave hope, but it was weeks old, too slow for Lena's trial. Miles had an idea, risky but bold, a hunger strike to draw eyes to Redstone, to their case, to Hargrove's lies. If inmates joined, the noise could reach. Reporters forced the FBI to act. Malik hesitated, then agreed, his eyes scanning the cell for bugs. "We'll spread it through Caleb," he said, scratching a coded note on a mattress seam. "Strike starts tomorrow." Miles felt a spark, a way to fight for Lena without breaking cover. They'd survived torture, kept their mission, thought they could hold the line. Maybe this was their shot to save her. Morning brought a guard's boot kicking the door, Bragg's scowl greeting them. "Chow time," he barked, baton tapping, his crooked star ring a taunt. Miles and Malik shuffled out, bruises screaming, but their plan burned brighter. In the mess hall, air thick with grease and sweat, they passed the note to Caleb, his nod quick, eyes sharp. By noon, whispers spread, inmates refusing trays, black faces first, then others, a silent revolt against Hargrove's machine. Miles's chest swelled, seeing defiance take root, their mother's fate fueling the fire. Guards glared, Kessler's radio crackling with orders, but no batons swung yet. The strike held, a ripple growing to a wave, and Miles believed they'd done it, forced Hargrove's hand, maybe saved Lena. A guard slipped through the chaos, not Kessler or Doyle, but a new face, young, nervous, his badge reading Ellis. He leaned close during lineup, voice a whisper. "Reporter got your story, Lena's. Case hit the papers. Keep pushing." Miles' heart leapt, the strike working faster than he'd dreamed, their mother's name now public. Ellis vanished, his risk a lifeline. proof someone saw through Hargrove's lies. Back in the cell, Malik decoded a smuggled clipping, a local paper calling Lena's arrest a scandal, hinting at judicial corruption. They grinned, a rare moment, believing they'd cracked the machine's armor, their mother's trial delayed, Diane closing in. The hunger gnawed, but hope fed them, a victory they could taste. But Redstone's siren screamed at dusk, shattering the calm, smoke curling through the vents like a snake. "Fire!" someone yelled. Inmates pounding bars, guards shouting. Miles' gut twisted, the timing too perfect, Hargrove's claw marks all over it. Malik grabbed his arm, eyes wide. "Set up!" he hissed, and they pressed against the door, coughing as smoke thickened, heat rising to 100 degrees. The block erupted, flames licking the corridor, guards vanishing, leaving inmates to choke. Miles's mind raced. This was no accident, a trap to bury their strike, their story, Lena's hope. They tore strips from their jumpsuits, covering mouths, searching for a way out, believing they could escape, keep the fight alive. The cell door flew open, Doyle storming in, his face a mask of glee, firelight glinting off his shaved head. "Arson!" he roared, cuffs snapping on their wrists. "You burned this place down, feds." Miles's voice was raw. "We were locked in, you know." "That." Kessler appeared, tossing a gas can at their feet, its clang deafening. "Found this in your cell," he said, grin feral, the racial lie blatant, their blackness enough to convict. The fire raged, screams echoing, but the frame-up was the real. Blaze torching their strike's momentum. They were dragged through smoke, flames licking close to a courtyard where inmates watched, Caleb's eyes helpless, their revolt reduced to ashes. In a holding room, air acrid with soot, Tate waited, his badge a mockery of law. "You thought a little strike would save your mama," he sneered, tossing Lena's arrest report on a table, her mugshot staring up, eyes tired but proud. "She's facing life now, aiding terrorists like you." Miles' knees buckled, the lie a sledgehammer, Lena's life twisted into Hargrove's narrative. Malik's voice shook, rare anger breaking through. "She's innocent, and you're filth for this." Tate laughed, cold as frost, and waved them out. "Blackwater facility," he said, signing a transfer order. "You're ghosts now." Miles's heart sank. Blackwater a myth, an off-grid prison for those Hargrove wanted erased, worse than Redstone's hell. They were chained in a van, firelight fading. Behind them, the road to Blackwater a black hole. Miles clutched Lena's mugshot in his mind, her strength their anchor, but the transfer crushed their media win, Hargrove's machine swallowing their spark. The strike had lit a fire, Ellis's. Leak had reached the world. They'd thought Lena was safe. But Hargrove struck harder, turning their defiance into her sentence, their hope into smoke. Malik's hand brushed his, a silent vow, but Blackwater loomed, a void they couldn't map. Its secrets a blade at their throats. If you're gutted by Hargrove framing Lena to crush Miles and Malik's fight, comment number 1 to demand justice for her. Like and subscribe to keep their story alive. Can you fathom the pain of seeing your mother cuffed for your truth? Drop a comment with your thoughts on their unbreakable spirit, and hit subscribe to stay in this battle. What horrors lurk in Blackwater, and how will they claw back from this inferno? Malik Jackson's wrists burned under steel cuffs as the unmarked van lurched to a stop, the Mississippi night air thick at 87 degrees Fahrenheit, his jumpsuit stiff with ash from Redstone's fire. Their mother Lena's arrest haunted him. Sheriff Tate's sneer a blade in his chest, proof Judge Clarence Hargrove's machine had no limits. Miles sat beside him, face bruised, eyes scanning the dark, their FBI instincts razor-sharp despite the despair. Blackwater facility loomed ahead, its silhouette invisible, a secret prison off every map, Hargrove's vault for the damned. Malik's heart pounded, the hunger strike's collapse, Lena's looming conviction, all dwarfed by this void. How do you fight when you're already a ghost? The van's door slid open, revealing a concrete gate, no guards visible, just floodlights cutting through fog like knives. A voice crackled from a speaker, cold and mechanical. "Step out, prisoners." Malik and Miles shuffled forward, chains clinking, the ground slick under their boots. The gate groaned, swallowing them into a tunnel, air chilling to 60 degrees, smelling of rust and bleach. Inside, Blackwater was a nightmare, steel walls etched with scratches, screams echoing faintly, a place where time died. Malik's eyes caught a logo on a door, a crooked star in a shield. Hargrove's mark, confirming his funding, ran this hell. What kind of man builds a cage like this? Intake was a ritual of control, stripped of humanity. They were uncuffed only. To face a new torment, a hooded figure barking orders, no badge, just a baton that gleamed wetly. "Strip," he growled, voice muffled, and Malik complied, skin crawling under the figure's gaze, Miles' silence a mirror of his own rage. The search was clinical, probes and scans, machines humming, their blackness a specimen here. Not a crime. "Your numbers now," the figure said, tossing them grey smocks, the fabric thin, smelling of chemicals. Malik memorized the hall's layout. 12 doors, no windows, cameras in every corner. Knowing escape was a fantasy, but planning anyway. They were led to a lab-like chamber, walls lined with monitors, air at 55 degrees, goosebumps rising. A woman in a white coat, Dr. Ellis, her name stitched in red, studied them like lab rats. "Behavioral trials," she said, voice flat. "Hargrove's orders. You'll comply or vanish." Malik's gut twisted, sensing the truth. Experiments targeting black inmates, their pain a data point for Hargrove's allies. Miles's eyes met his, a flicker of defiance, their oath to fight unbroken. They were strapped to chairs, electrodes, taped to their temples, images flashing, racial slurs mixed with violence meant to break them. Malik gritted his teeth, refusing to flinch. But the slurs cut deep, each one a whip from Hargrove's hand. Between sessions, they were thrown into separate cells, 5 feet by 7, steel slabs for beds, a drain for a toilet. Malik's cell hummed with a low frequency, designed to fray nerves, sleep impossible. He scratched calculations on the slab, tracking guard shifts, 6 every 4 hours, searching for a crack in Blackwater's armor. A tap came through the wall. Miles's signal, faint but clear. "I'm here." Malik tapped back, relief flooding him, their bond a lifeline. He found a loose panel under his slab, prying it open to reveal a guard's forgotten log, entries detailing subject responses to pain, Hargrove's signature scrawled on funding orders. Malik's blood ran cold. Proof this was no prison, but a lab, Black Lives fuel for profit. Days blurred, experiments relentless, guards taunting their heritage, calling them test dogs, their blackness a justification for every needle, every shock. Malik clung to the log, hiding it in his smock, a weapon if they could use it. During a transfer, a guard lingered, his face softer, badge reading Carver, eyes uneasy. "You don't belong here," he whispered, slipping Malik a key fragment, small but heavy. "Get to the east vent, I'll cover you." Malik's pulse spiked, a whistleblower, a chance to break free. He shared it with Miles in a rushed moment, their plan forming, vent to a maintenance shaft, then out, Lena's face their drive. They believed they'd found a path, Carver their edge against Hargrove's machine. They moved at midnight, cells unlocked with Carver's key, creeping through shadows, air damp at 60 degrees, the vent a rusted grate 12 feet up. Malik boosted Miles, his brother's hands steady, pulling him through, the shaft tight, smelling of oil. They crawled, hearts pounding, believing escape was close, Lena's freedom within reach. The strike had failed, but this could save her, expose Blackwater's horrors. Malik clutched the log, its pages their ticket out, Hargrove's downfall in ink. They reached a junction, light flickering ahead, freedom so close he could taste it. But boots echoed, a trap springing shut. Carver's voice now cold, leading guards, his face a mask of betrayal. "You thought I'd risk it all?" Carver sneered. Rifle raised, star ring glinting, Hargrove's loyalist after all. Malik's stomach dropped, the key a lure, their hope a noose. Guards swarmed, batons cracking ribs, Miles grunting as he fell, Malik's arm twisting under a knee. They were dragged to a chamber, monitors dark, air freezing at 50 degrees. "Execution orders," Carver said, tossing the log aside, its pages scattering. "You're too loud, even for Blackwater." Malik's vision blurred, blood on his lips. But Hargrove's voice cut through, not in person but on a screen. His face smug, eyes glinting like a snake's. "You've been a nuisance," Hargrove said, sipping coffee, a world away. Your identities? Sold to a cartel, better profit than keeping you. Malik's heart stopped. The betrayal total. Carver's payout a speck in Hargrove's game. Miles's eyes met his, rage mirroring. Despair their mother's fate now a shadow to this. Their lives auctioned like cattle. They'd trusted Carver, planned their run, thought they'd won a piece of Hargrove's empire. But the machine struck harder, turning their defiance into a death warrant, their names a commodity for killers. The screen went black. Guards cocking. Rifles. The chambers chill their grave. Blackwater's secret safe, or so Hargrove believed. Miles Jackson's body ached as he dove behind a steel crate in Blackwater Facility's loading bay, the Mississippi air heavy at 89 degrees Fahrenheit, his grey smock torn from the guards' blows. Judge Clarence Hargrove's video. Threat echoed. Their identities sold to a cartel. Carver's betrayal a fresh wound. Their mother Lena's fate, a distant scream under this new terror. Malik crouched beside him, blood crusting his brow, eyes sharp with FBI focus, despite the execution order ringing in their ears. Cartel assassins were coming, Hargrove's final play to erase them, and Blackwater's concrete maze was their battlefield. How do you survive when your name's a death sentence? The bay was a cavern of shadows, 40 feet wide, crates stacked like tombstones, the hum of generators masking their breaths. Miles's training kicked in, mapping exits, 3 doors, all locked, a skylight 20 feet up, unreachable. Guards. Boots echoed, Carver's voice barking orders, but a new sound cut through. A low growl, not prison issue, something foreign, precise. Malik nudged him, pointing to a flicker of movement, men in black gear, not guards, their faces masked. Knives, glinting. Cartel, Malik whispered, and Miles's pulse spiked. Hargrove's deal now flesh and steel. Their blackness a target no badge could shield. They moved fast, silent, using crates for cover, their undercover ops skills a razor's edge. Miles spotted, a loose pipe wrenching it free, a crude weapon, while Malik grabbed a shard of glass from a broken crate, its edge jagged. The assassins fanned out, 4 of them, radios crackling in Spanish, their steps methodical. Miles's heart raced, but he focused, signaling Malik to flank left, their old rhythm snapping into place. The first attacker lunged, blade slashing, and Miles parried with the pipe, metal clanging, sparks flying. Malik tackled a second, glass-biting flesh, a grunt echoing as they fought, not to kill but to survive, each move a defiance of Hargrove's script. The fight was brutal, sweat stinging Miles's eyes, his shoulder screaming from a grazed cut. They downed 2, disarming them, but the others retreated, radios buzzing, calling backup. Miles' breath heaved, Malik steadying him, their victory fleeting, Blackwater's walls still a cage. They scavenged a radio, catching a name, Delgado, the cartel's point man, and a phrase Hargrove's ledger, proof of his deals. Miles' mind clicked, the log from their cell, its pages scattered but maybe not lost. If they could find it, smuggle it out, Hargrove's empire could crack. They searched the bay, finding a guard's satchel, and there it was, the ledger, names, dates, millions tied to prisons, cartels, Hargrove's signature inked like blood. Hope surged, a plan forming. Get the ledger to an ally, maybe Ellis, the nervous guard from Redstone's leak, still out there. Miles tucked the ledger into his smock, its weight a promise to Lena, to justice. They slipped through a service door, air cooling to 70 degrees, a maintenance hall stretching into dark. Malik hot-wired a panel, lights flickering, buying. Time, and they ran. Believing they'd outrun the cartel, turned Hargrove's weapon against him. The ledger was their strike, a chance to save their mother, end this nightmare. They found a vent crawling through, dust choking them, thinking they'd made it, freedom a breath away. But the vent shook, boots pounding below, Delgado's voice. Cutting through English now, laced with venom. You're worth more alive, feds, but not by much. Miles's stomach dropped, the cartel closing faster than they'd planned. Hargrove's deal a chain they couldn't break. They emerged in a storage room, crates of medical supplies, air stale at 65 degrees. But the door burst open, not cartel but Sheriff Tate, his badge glinting, SWAT team at his back, rifles raised. Terrorists, Tate bellowed, cuffs snapping. On his grin a blade. You're a threat to national security, boys. Miles's voice shook, raw with disbelief. "We're FBI, you know that." Tate laughed, cold as frost, tossing the ledger into a crate, its pages meaningless to him. The SWAT team dragged them through Blackwater's bowels, past cells where inmates stared, hollow-eyed, their blackness a shared sentence. Tate's radio crackled. Hargrove's voice, faint but clear, erased their records, no trace. Miles's heart sank, the ledger gone, their identities next, the terrorism charge a lie so bold it stole his breath. They were labeled radicals, their black faces enough. To sell the story, no evidence needed in Hargrove's world. Malik's eyes met his, rage mirroring fear. Their mother's arrest now a speck against this. Their existence a myth Hargrove could burn. They'd fought off killers, secured the ledger, thought they'd struck gold, only to land in a deeper trap. They were thrown into a chopper, blades roaring, lifting into the night. No destination given. Tate leaned close, his breath sour. "Black site," he said, smirking, "where ghosts like you belong." Miles' mind reeled. A foreign prison, no laws, no hope. Hargrove's machine stretching beyond borders, their FBI status erased. The chopper climbed, Mississippi fading below, Lena's face a fading star in Miles's chest. They'd believed the ledger was their key, Ellis their lifeline, but Hargrove's claws were global, turning their defiance into exile. Their names a lie no one would seek. Malik's hand brushed his, a vow unbroken, but the black site loomed, its shadows a grave they couldn't yet see. If you're stunned by Hargrove selling Miles and Malik to a cartel, only to frame them as terrorists, comment number 1 to rage against this injustice. Like and subscribe to keep their fight burning. Can you believe they found Hargrove's ledger, only to lose it to Tate's lies? Drop a comment with your reaction to their unbreakable will, and hit subscribe to stay in. This war. What awaits them in a black site prison, and can they claw back from being erased? Malik Jackson's lungs burned as the chopper's blades faded, dumping him and Miles into a sweltering foreign night. The air thick at 93 degrees Fahrenheit, their grey smocks soaked with sweat and blood. Sheriff Tate's terrorism. Charge echoed, their FBI records erased by Judge Clarence Hargrove, rendering them stateless ghosts in a black site prison somewhere beyond Mississippi's reach. Their mother Lena's arrest, the cartel threat, Blackwater's betrayal, all spiraled into this void, Hargrove's machine now a global beast. Malik's eyes adjusted to the dark, a barbed wire compound looming, guards shouting in a language he didn't know. How do you fight when you're no one, nowhere? The black site was a fortress of decay. Concrete walls 15 feet high, cracked by heat, smelling of mold and diesel. Guards shoved them through a rusted gate, their boots sinking into mud, Miles limp from Blackwater's beating a silent ache in Malik's chest. No badges here, just shadowed faces, rifles slung low, and a commander, a gaunt man with a shaved head, spitting orders. "Strip!" he barked, his accent sharp, and Malik complied, skin crawling under cold stares. Their blackness. A spectacle, a reason for every jab. The search was ruthless, hands probing. Racial slurs hissed in broken English, "You're nothing here, dogs." Malik memorized their faces. 5 guards, 3 exits, his FBI instincts a flicker in the dark. They were thrown into a holding cell. 7 feet by 6, a single bulb swinging, casting jagged shadows on walls scarred with claw marks. The air was 80 degrees, humid, a bucket for a toilet, no cot, just dirt. Malik sank to the floor, Miles beside him, their breaths sinking, a lifeline forged in childhood. Malik's mind raced, Hargrove's ledger lost, Lena's fate a distant wound. But they were alive, still agents, still brothers. He whispered, "We need a plan," his voice steady despite the weight. Miles nodded, eyes glinting. "We're not done yet." They'd survived Blackwater's execution. They'd survive this. But the black site's silence screamed otherwise. The first interrogation came at dawn, guards dragging them to a steel room, air chilled to 60 degrees, water dripping from pipes overhead. A new tormentor, a wiry man named Varick, his eyes like flint, strapped them to chairs, hoses at the ready. "Who's your handler?" he snarled, and when Malik stayed silent, water hit, icy, relentless, flooding his nose, his lungs, a simulated drowning that tore at his core. Miles coughed beside him, gasping. Their blackness mocked with every pause. "Terrorists don't get mercy," Varric sneered, slurs lacing each word. Malik clung to Lena's face, their oath refusing to break, but the water came again, harder, his. Vision blackening, Hargrove's laughter in every drop. Between sessions they were chained in the cell, bodies shivering, skin raw. Malik's fingers found a crack in the dirt. A guard's dropped pen, its tip bent but usable. He scratched a code on his arm. Dates, names, Varric's shifts, anything to track this hell. A guard passed, younger, his face less cruel, badge reading. "Luca!" He lingered, eyes darting, then slipped a cloth through the bars, dry, a small mercy. Malik caught his gaze, sensing a crack, a way in. Luca muttered, "You don't fit here," and walked away. But the cloth was a signal, a chance. Malik shared it with Miles, their plan shifting. Befriend Luca, find a weakness, get out. Luca returned at midnight, air at 70 degrees, slipping them bread, stale but real. "I know, Feds," he whispered. "You're not terrorists." Malik's heart leapt. A rogue ally, maybe their Diane Voss, gone underground to save them. They pressed him, low and urgent, needing a phone, a signal. Luca nodded. "I'll try, but it's risky." Malik's mind spun, Diane's last message. Hold on, now a faint hope. Lena's life, their drive. They planned to hack a guard's phone. Reach Diane, believing Luca's help could break this cage, save their mother, expose Hargrove's global web. They waited, tense, thinking they'd turned the tide, a spark in the black site's dark. Luca delivered, a stolen phone, its screen cracked, battery low. Malik's fingers flew, hacking the lock, finding a signal, weak but enough. He typed Diane's code, urgent, coordinates, Hargrove's cartel deal, Lena's arrest, praying it reached her. The message sent, a confirmation ping, Diane's reply. Flashing, "I'm Rogue, coming for you." Malik grinned, Miles' hand gripping his, their first win since Redstone's strike. Lena's face clearer now. They hid the phone, believing rescue was close. Hargrove's empire cracking, their stateless hell ending. They'd endured waterboarding, found Luca, sent the signal, thought they'd won a round, but the black site's walls whispered betrayal. Dawn brought chaos, sirens wailing, guards storming the compound. Not Luca's soft steps, but Varric's fury. "Prison break," he roared, dragging them from the cell, rifles jabbing their ribs. Malik's heart sank, the phone gone, their signal. A spark for Hargrove's trap. Outside, smoke rose, inmates running, a staged escape, bodies on the ground, all black, labeled terrorists like them, no coincidence. Varric shoved them into a jeep. "You caused this," his slurs venomous, their blackness. The crime? Proof irrelevant. Malik's eyes caught Luca's, now cold, a traitor paid off, Hargrove's reach infinite. They were driven through dust, miles from nowhere, to a new nightmare. Mercenaries waiting, their gear unmarked, faces hard. The leader, a scarred man named Corso, grinned, gold tooth flashing. "Hargrove's auctions live," he said, tossing a tablet showing bids, their intel, their lives. Up for grabs, Russia, China, cartels, millions changing hands. Malik's stomach dropped. Their signal to Diane, a beacon for predators. Luca's betrayal total. Corso leaned close. "You're valuable, Feds, but not for long." The racial edge cut deep, their blackness a commodity, no badge left. Then a radio. Crackled Diane's code, but not her voice, a stranger's. "Voss is dead, caught crossing borders." Malik's world tilted, their handler gone, their last hope snuffed, Hargrove's machine a god they couldn't touch. They were chained in a tent. Air at 85 degrees, the mercenaries' laughter a drumbeat, bids climbing. Miles' eyes met Malik's. Despair mirrored but unbroken. Lena's strength their anchor. They'd hacked the phone, reached Diane, thought rescue was theirs, but Hargrove's claws turned their defiance into a global sale. Their handlers, blood a warning. The tablet glowed, bids hitting 10 million. Their lives a number, the black site a memory, this new hell their reality. Corso's gun a promise of worse to come. Miles Jackson's boots sank into the muddy alley of a foreign slum, the tropical air thick at 94 degrees Fahrenheit, his torn smock reeking of sweat and blood. The black site's mercenary camp burned in his memory, their handler Diane's. Death a fresh wound. Judge Clarence Hargrove's auction of their lives a global noose tightening around them. Malik ran beside him, face gaunt but eyes fierce, their FBI training the only shield against a world that saw them as terrorists. Escaping Corso's mercenaries had cost everything, their mother Lena's fate a distant ache, Hargrove's machine, now hunting them across borders. How do you fight when the world's against you? The slum was a maze, shanties of tin and wood sprawling for miles, laundry lines sagging under a moonless sky. Miles' lungs heaved, the choppers crash behind. Them? A desperate leap from its bay, their only chance after overpowering a lone guard. Malik's arm bled from a shard of wreckage, but he kept pace, their bond a pulse in the dark. Voices shouted, not English, locals scattering, mercenaries' radios crackling nearby. Miles spotted a market stall, crates of fruit, and pulled Malik behind it, their breaths hushed, hearts pounding. They were fugitives, stateless, black faces in a land where their skin marked them as prey, Hargrove's lies painting them as radicals no one would spare. They moved low, weaving through alleys, the air cooling to 80 degrees as clouds rolled. In rain threatening. Miles's eyes caught a girl no older than 12, watching from a doorway, her gaze curious, not hostile. He nodded, a risk, and she vanished, only to return with a man, wiry, his hair grey, introducing himself as Tariq, a mechanic with wary eyes. "You're not from here," Tariq said, voice low, "but you're not them either," gesturing to distant lights, mercenaries sweeping the slum. Miles hesitated, then spoke. "We're running from a lie, men who want us gone." Tariq studied them, then beckoned. "My sister's house, safe for now." Her home was a shack 10 feet by 12, lit by a single bulb smelling of rice and damp earth. Tariq's sister Amira offered water, her hands calloused, eyes kind but sharp. "You're American," she said, not a question, and Miles nodded, sensing trust. Malik explained, keeping it vague, framed by a judge, hunted for truth. Amira's face hardened. "I know corrupt men. They bleed the same." She showed them a radio, picking up news. Their faces flashed. Terrorists linked to a US plot. Hargrove's deepfake lies spreading fast, their blackness weaponized, no badge to counter it. Miles' gut twisted. Lena's arrest now a speck. Against this global smear, Tariq had a plan, a hacker friend, Layla, who could broadcast truth, crack Hargrove's narrative. Miles's heart leapt, a way to fight back, expose the auction, Lena's framing, everything. They met Layla in a basement, air at 70 degrees, computers humming, her fingers dancing on keys, dreadlocks swinging. "I can hijack a satellite feed," she said, voice fierce, "but you need proof, something big." Malik pulled a memory from Blackwater, the ledger's details burned in his mind. Names, deals, Hargrove's cartel ties. Miles recited them, Layla typing, building a file, their voices. A lifeline to Lena, to justice. They planned a live stream, Tariq rigging power. Amira guarding the door, believing they'd outrun Hargrove's shadow, strike his heart. They worked through the night, rain hammering tin roofs, the slum alive with whispers of their stand. Miles felt hope, fragile but real, their allies a shield against despair. Layla's screen glowed, a test feed live, their words ready to hit millions. They'd escaped the chopper, found Tariq, built a network, thought they'd turned fugitives into warriors. Malik's eyes met his, a spark of their old fire, Lena's strength in every move. They hit broadcast, Miles speaking first. "We're FBI, framed by Clarence Hargrove, his deals fund death," and Malik followed, listing names, millions, prisons, cartels, their truth a blade to the world. The feed surged, views climbing, thousands, then millions, comments flooding, some calling them heroes, others Hargrove's lies. Miles's chest swelled, believing they'd done it. Saved Lena. Cracked. The machine. They'd fought mercenaries, trusted strangers, hacked a signal, thought the world would listen. But sirens wailed, not local, sharper, military grade. Tariq burst in, face pale. "They're coming, big guns, Tate's men." Miles's heart sank, Hargrove's reach infinite, their broadcast a beacon for his wrath. The basement shook, explosions. Rocking the slum, dust choking the air, Layla's screens flickering as bombs fell. Tate's task force tearing through. They ran, Layla grabbing a drive, their proof, Malik shielding Amira, Miles pulling Tariq from debris. The slum burned, shanties collapsing, screams piercing the night, 90 degrees again, heat a beast. Mercenaries swarmed, not Corsos these. Colder elite, Tate's global unit, their rifles precise. Miles' leg burned, shrapnel grazing, but he pushed on, Malik's hand steadying him, their allies scattering. They hit a dead end, a collapsed wall, trapped, believing they'd lost, their broadcast ashes, Lena's hope gone. But Layla reappeared, blood on her cheek, pulling them into a sewer, her voice fierce. "I'm with you, keep fighting." The tunnel was dark, 6 feet high, water ankle-deep, smelling of rot, air at 65 degrees. Layla whispered, "I saved the feed. It's spreading." Miles clung to that, but news crackled on her radio. Tate's voice smug. Terrorists bombed a civilian zone. Jackson twins to blame. Malik's face crumpled. The lie monstrous. Their blackness now a global curse, blamed for deaths they didn't cause, no proof needed. They'd rallied a slum, broadcast truth, thought they'd won hearts, but Hargrove's machine spun there. Defiance into slaughter, making them fugitives no one would save. Layla's drive their last spark in a world turned blind. Malik Jackson's heart thundered as he crouched in the shadows of a U.S. Embassy's perimeter fence. The foreign city's air humid at 91 degrees Fahrenheit, his ragged smock clinging to his bruised skin. The slum's bombing frame-up burned in his mind. Sheriff Tate's voice blaming them for civilian deaths. Judge Clarence Hargrove's machine painting them as global terrorists. Miles pressed beside him, eyes scanning the guards, their FBI training a fading pulse against their fugitive status. Their mother Lena's arrest, Blackwater's horrors, Diane's death, all led here, a final stand to expose Hargrove's ledger. How do you reclaim truth when you're the world's enemy? The embassy loomed, a fortress of glass and steel, 20 feet high, floodlights sweeping the courtyard, 100 yards wide. Malik's fingers gripped Layla's drive, their proof from the slum broadcast, names, deals, Hargrove's cartel ties saved before Tate's bombs fell. They'd escaped the sewer. Tariq and Amira lost to the chaos. Layla, their only ally now, her dreadlocks tucked under a cap, her laptop slung across her back. She'd hacked a guard's ID, a slim chance to breach security, reach a comms room, broadcast the drive live. Malik's breath steadied, Lena's strength his anchor, their oath to fight unbroken despite the odds. They moved at midnight, rain slicking the ground, cooling to 80 degrees, masking their steps. Layla disabled a camera, its red light dying, and Malik scaled the fence, wire cutting his palms, Miles boosting him, their rhythm seamless. They dropped inside, sprinting to a side door, Layla's ID buzzing them through, alarms silent for now. The hall was marble, air at 70 degrees, smelling of polish, monitors glowing with feeds. Malik's pulse raced, guards patrolling 50 feet away, but he cracked a keypad, FBI skills sharp, opening a stairwell to the comms room, their goal. A beacon in this maze. Inside, Layla's fingers flew, jacking into the system, screens flickering as she prepped the drive. Malik guarded the door, Miles watching vents, their eyes meeting, a silent vow, Lena's face in both. They streamed live, Malik's voice steady. "We're FBI agents. Clarence Hargrove framed us. His ledger funds, cartels, prisons, death, listing names, millions, deals etched in his memory from Blackwater." Views surged, thousands, then millions, the world waking to their truth. Comments calling Hargrove a monster, others doubting, but the tide shifted, Lena's arrest trending, justice a spark. Malik's chest swelled, believing they'd done it, reached hearts, saved their mother, cracked Hargrove's empire. They outsmarted security, Layla rerouting alarms, Malik jamming radios, Miles rigging a lock, buying minutes. The feed hit newsrooms. Embassies, FBI servers, their faces no longer just terrorists but agents, black men fighting a tyrant. Malik pictured Lena, her diner smile, free maybe. Hargrove's gavel silenced. They'd escaped mercenaries, slums, bombs, thought this was their win. The drive their sword, public eyes their shield. But a screen flashed, not Layla's, a deepfake video. Hargrove's creation, their faces confessing treason. "We sabotaged the US, sold secrets, Lies so real the views plummeted, hate flooding comments. Their truth drowned. Malik's stomach dropped. Hargrove's machine infinite, turning their broadcast into poison. Their blackness a traitor's mask, no badge enough. Layla cursed, trying to counter, but boots thundered, the door exploding inward. Tate's elite squad, not embassy guards, their rifles black as night, star pins glinting, Hargrove's mark. "You're done!" Tate roared, cuffs snapping, his grin. "Feral, you thought the world cared about your kind." The racial slur hit hard, their fight reduced to nothing, Lena's hope a fading star. Malik struggled, Miles kicking, but barrels pressed their chests, execution orders in Tate's eyes. The comms room a trap they'd built themselves. They were dragged to a courtyard, rain soaking them, 90 degrees again. The embassy's flag, mocking their oath. Tate loomed, radio crackling. Hargrove's voice faint, "Finish it clean." Malik's mind screamed, the deep fake a masterstroke, their broadcast flipped to treason, no ally left. They'd believed the world would see, Lena would be free. But Hargrove's lies were thicker, their black faces perfect for his narrative, no evidence needed. Miles' breath hitched, despair creeping, but Malik gripped his hand, a vow to fight even now, their mother's courage, their last spark. Tate raised his gun, rain streaking his badge, but a new voice cut through, sharp, not his squad. "Stand down," it said, and Malik's eyes flicked to a man in a suit, not embassy, his face hard, Hargrove's ally, a senator named Crane, his tie. "Pin a crooked star." "We've got a deal," Crane said, tossing a tablet, bids flashing, cartels, governments, Hargrove's network turning. "Drop your proof," Crane hissed, "and you walk, keep Lena safe." Malik's heart stopped. The drive in Layla's hand, their truth, Lena's life on one side, Hargrove's empire on the other. They'd hacked the embassy, streamed truth, thought they'd won, but Hargrove's allies flipped the board, offering freedom for silence, betrayal for survival. The rain pounded, Tate's gun steady, Crane's eyes cold, the squad circling. No escape. Malik looked to Miles, their bond a lifeline, Lena's face in both, but the drive burned. Their fight, their oath, against a deal that could save her, end this hell. They'd believed the broadcast was enough, a global cry, but Hargrove's machine spun their defiance into treason, their allies into judges, their truth into a bargain they couldn't take, or could they? The courtyard tightened, death or betrayal. The only paths Hargrove's shadow laughing, the world blind to their stand. Miles Jackson stood in the rain-soaked courtyard of the U.S. Embassy, his heart a hammer against his ribs, the foreign night thick at 90 degrees Fahrenheit, his smock heavy with mud and blood. Sheriff Tate's rifle pressed into his chest. Senator Crane's deal echoing, "Drop the drive, save Lena, betray the truth." Judge Clarence Hargrove's deepfake had crushed their broadcast, branding them traitors, their mother's life the bait to silence them. Malik's eyes locked with his, their bond a steel thread, Layla clutching the drive, its ledger their last weapon against Hargrove's empire. Miles' FBI resolve burned, Lena's diner smile his North Star, but death loomed, the squad's boots circling. How do you choose when truth costs everything? The embassy's floodlights glared, 100 yards of concrete trapping them, rain stinging like needles, air cooling to 85 degrees. Tate's grin was feral, his star pin glinting, Hargrove's mark, a taunt of their journey, courtroom to blacksite, slums to this. Crane leaned close, his suit pristine, voice silk. "Sign the confession. Your mama walks. You're free." The tablet glowed, bids fading, cartels outbid. Hargrove's allies ready to bury the drive, erase their fight. Miles' hand shook, the drive holding Blackwater's horrors, Redstone's frame-ups, Lena's arrest, every black life Hargrove crushed. Signing meant losing it all, letting his machine win, but Lena's face tore at him, her hymns against hate their strength since childhood. Malik's voice cut through, low, fierce. "We don't bend, Miles, not now, not ever." Miles nodded, their oath louder than fear, Lena's courage a fire no deal could douse. He faced Crane, voice steady. "Keep your lies, we're telling the truth." Tate's rifle cocked, a click like thunder, his racial slur a final whip, "You're nothing, never were." The squad tightened, barrels gleaming, Layla's breath hitching, the drive her lifeline, their stand a spark in the dark. Miles braced, expecting death, believing they'd fought well, exposed Hargrove, lit a fuse for justice, Lena proud even if they fell. The rain pounded, the world blind, their blackness a crime no embassy could absolve. But a screen flared, not Crane's tablet, the embassy's main display, 50 feet wide, Layla's face appearing, not cowering but commanding, her dreadlocks free, eyes blazing. "I'm Layla Khan, DOJ agent," she declared, voice booming, infiltrating Hargrove's network for 2 years. Miles's heart stopped, the air electric, Tate's rifle wavering, Crane's face paling. Layla's broadcast hijacked every feed, newsrooms, satellites, phones, the real ledger streaming. Not their stolen drive but her own, names, deals, cartels, prisons. Hargrove's signature inked across decades of corruption, Black lives his currency, Lena's arrest his latest sin. The courtyard froze, guards lowering weapons, embassy staff rushing out, phones buzzing with Layla's truth. She listed Crane's deals, Tate's bribes, Blackwater's experiments, Redstone's frame-ups, each word a blade, Hargrove's empire unraveling live. Miles' knees buckled, relief crashing, Malik gripping his arm, their eyes wet, Lena's strength mirrored in Layla's stand. The deepfake crumbled, their broadcast revived, millions watching, comments flooding, justice now a roar. Tate lunged, roaring, "You're dead!" But embassy guards tackled him, cuffs snapping, his star pin hitting mud, Hargrove's mark broken at last. Crane bolted, suit sodden, but Layla's voice followed. Crane's accounts frozen, DOJ closing in. The screen showed Hargrove, not a video but live, his office raided, federal agents cuffing him mid-sentence, his gavel useless, face grey with shock. Miles's chest heaved, vindication a tide. Their journey, courtroom betrayal, Redstone's knives, Blackwater's needles, the slums bombs, all leading here. Hargrove's fall a beacon for Lena, for every black life he'd chained. Malik whispered, "We did it, brother," and Miles nodded, tears mixing with rain, their mother's pride a light no prison could dim. Layla joined them, no longer fugitive but agent, her badge glinting, DOJ's secret weapon, embedded since Sterling County, watching Hargrove's machine from within. "I saw your fight," she said, voice soft. "You lit the spark. I fanned the flame." Miles's heart swelled. Their defiance, hunger strikes, broadcasts, scraps of proof, all fuel for her strike. Lena's name trending, her charges dropped, diner open, free. The embassy buzzed, diplomats scrambling, news crews swarming. The twins, faces heroes now, not terrorists. Their blackness a badge of honor, not shame. But Layla's eyes darkened, her voice low. Hargrove's down, but his shadows long, prisons, cartels, senators, they're waking up. Miles felt the weight. Their win a battle, not the war. Black lives still bleeding under systems Hargrove built. The screen shifted, protests erupting. Mississippi to Miami, signs demanding reform. Lena's face on banners, their story a match to dry grass. Malik's hand steadied him. "We started this, we'll keep fighting," and Miles nodded, their oath reborn. Lena's hymns now a movement. Hargrove's fall just the start. They stepped from the courtyard, rain easing, air at 80 degrees, embassy gates opening, not to chains, but freedom. Agents flanked them, not Tate's squad, but DOJ offering transport home, Lena waiting. Miles' boots hit pavement, Malik's stride matching. Their scars a map of survival, courtroom to slums, Blackwater to this, every frame-up, every slur, fuel for this fire. The crowd chanted, "Justice, justice," black voices loudest, their story a spark no machine could douse. Hargrove's gavel silent, but the fight alive, burning, endless. The saga of Miles and Malik Jackson unveils profound truths about resilience and justice in the face of systemic racism. Their journey, from a corrupt Mississippi courtroom to global exile, teaches us that truth, though buried, can rise with relentless fight. Hargrove's machine, built on racist lies, framed them as terrorists targeting their blackness, their mother Lena, their very existence. Yet they never broke, their bond a fortress against every blow, showing that family and conviction outlast any cage. Layla's DOJ reveal, sparked by their defiance, proves one voice can ignite millions, toppling empires like Hargrove's, but only if we refuse to bow. Their hunger strikes, broadcasts and scars scream that silence fuels oppression. Action dismantles it. Lena's freedom, Hargrove's cuffs and the uprising they birthed remind us that justice isn't given, it's seized, often at great cost. The story's heart lies in its call to see, to act, to stand for those crushed by systems that profit from black pain. Like Redstone Cells or Blackwater's Labs. Every frame-up, every slur, was a challenge they met with cunning, proving that even stateless, you're never powerless. Their legacy, protests sweeping cities, demands we question who's next, whose truth waits in shadows. The fight doesn't end with Hargrove. His shadow lingers in courts, prisons, policies, daring us to keep burning bright. What racist systems have you seen challenged, and how will you fight them? Comment below, like and subscribe to fuel this fire. Share this story to honor Miles, Malik and Lena's stand. Thank you for joining their battle, for believing justice can rise. May your courage match theirs, lighting paths through darkness, today and always.